For 80 years, the American pilot relied on one thing: a simple, ironclad engine made of steel and grit. This is the story of the $100,000 overhaul, how the Federal Aviation Administration ruined the American engine. Right now, the government is making a move that is quietly erasing the heritage of every small-town pilot in the country. They are creating a world where a 50-cent bolt costs a month's rent, and a simple fuel change can ground an entire generation of airplanes. We are watching the institutional end of the machines that built our history. But there is a hidden truth about the new unleaded fuel transition that nobody is telling you. A secret that is turning your affordable Cessna into a grounded relic while the big companies get rich off the paperwork. Why are the rules suddenly being rewritten to price you out of the sky forever? Is this a move for safety, or is it the final termination of the American dream? 12,800 engines. That's how many Lycoming cranked out in 1959 alone, most of them assembled by hand in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. You could stand on the factory floor and watch rows of air-cooled cylinders, steel barrels, forged pistons, bronze bearings, sliding down the line, destined for Cessnas and Pipers scattered from Alaska to Arkansas. These were not luxury items. They were built to work, to take a beating and keep running, just like a tractor in a muddy field. Air-cooled, horizontally opposed, four-stroke. No fancy sensors, no computer chips, just magnetos and carburetors, the kind you could rebuild on a wooden bench with a socket set and a shop rag. The 0320, the 0360, each one a hunk of American steel that promised you could fly in the morning, wrench in the afternoon, and still make it home for supper. Lycoming's payroll hit 4,600 in 1960, and every one of those workers knew their job mattered. Their engines powered medevacs out of farm fields, dropped mail to mountain towns, and hauled surveyors over endless prairie. Manuals showed you every bolt, every gasket, every way to keep the thing running with nothing but grit and a little oil. The pride came from knowing that if you could fix a tractor, you could fix an airplane. That is the world I grew up in, a world where mechanical honesty meant something, where a blue-collar pilot could trust the iron under his hands, and every one of us believed it would last forever. A Cessna 180 sits on a patch of grass behind the cooperative, mud caked on its tailwheel, engine ticking as it cools. Out here, an airplane isn't a toy or a trophy, it's a lifeline. In 1953, the Skywagon sales brochure didn't bother with talk of luxury. It promised a 500-pound payload, a 140-knot cruise, and the ability to land on a pasture or a gravel bar. That mattered to the farmer who needed blood delivered for a sick calf, or the nurse pilot hauling a newborn from a barn in Kansas to a hospital 2 counties over. The 0320 up front, it was as honest as a hammer, no digital anything. If it coughed, you pulled the cowling and fixed it with a socket set and a little nerve. Time between overhaul, called TBO, was 1,800 hours. That meant you could fly hard for years before thinking about a teardown. Manuals showed every step, every torque spec, right down to how to grind valves with nothing but a bench vise and a little lapping compound. Out here, no one waited for a factory rep or a gold-plated inspector. If you could fix a tractor, you could fix your airplane. The same hands that baled hay or welded a fence could keep a Skywagon in the air, and nobody from Washington had to sign off on it. Jack Harris, a Lycoming foreman from the old days, once told me about a medevac run in New Mexico. A night landing on a sand-choked strip, the engine never missed a beat. "That's what you want," he said, "an engine that works as hard as you do." That is the world I still believe in, where the only thing between you and the sky is your own ability, not a stack of paperwork or a $1,000 signature. That is the tractor imperative, iron you can trust, not technology you can't afford. Start with a part in your hand. Let us say a magneto, nothing fancy, just a hunk of metal and copper that has kept engines firing for 70 years. In the old days, if it sparked right and the timing was good, you bolted it on and you flew. Now, before that magneto can legally go near a certified airplane, it needs to wear a yellow tag, FAA Form 8130-3, called the Authorized Release Certificate. That slip of paper is not about function, it is about paperwork. No tag, no installation. It does not matter if the part is brand new or rebuilt by a master with 30 years on the bench. The yellow tag is the gatekeeper of the modern supply chain. Every certified part, whether it is a fuel pump, a cylinder, or a $5 gasket, must be accompanied by its own 8130-3. The process is spelled out in FAA Order 8130.2. Only a manufacturer, an FAA-approved repair station, or an Organization Designation Authorization, or ODA unit can issue the tag. That means the little guy, the field mechanic, the shop that has been fixing engines since Eisenhower was president, is locked out unless he pays to play by the new rules. Here is how it works. The part leaves the factory, travels through a chain of distributors, and at every handoff, the paperwork has to be perfect. If the tag gets lost, smudged, or questioned by a bureaucrat, the part is instantly worthless for certified use. Not defective, just undocumented. That is how a $40 magneto can turn into a $400 headache. The tag is not about safety. It is about proving on paper that the part was blessed by someone with the right credentials and a direct line to the FAA audit trail. The ODA system was supposed to speed things up, but it built another layer of insulation between the mechanic and the metal. Now the paperwork can take longer than the repair. Each ODA must submit its own 8130-3 data to the FAA, creating a maze of digital records and compliance checks. FAA Order 8130.2 says the tag exists to provide a uniform, auditable record. That is the gold-plated wall, bureaucracy masquerading as safety, with every signature and stamp adding another toll for the privilege of keeping old iron in the air. Meanwhile, the cost recovery rules, baked into the system since the 1990s, mean that every form, every inspection, every signature comes with a fee. The FAA does not eat those costs. They are passed straight to the owner, the operator, the mechanic. It is a perfect system if your goal is to turn a $300 part into a $1,200 invoice, all for the comfort of a yellow tag that says, in effect, Washington approves. That is how the gold-plated wall keeps growing, one slip of paper at a time. The engine has not changed, the paperwork has, and every time you pay for a yellow tag, you are not buying safety, you are buying permission. Hold a certified magneto in one hand and a so-called experimental one in the other. The difference isn't metal, it's paperwork. The certified part comes with a yellow tag, a stack of signatures, and a price that will make your blood pressure spike. On today's market, that tag alone can turn a $400 magneto into a $4,000 invoice. Same copper windings, same case, same function. The only real difference is the blessing of Washington and a chain of middlemen who each get their cut for pushing paper across a desk. You want a carburetor for your Skywagon? Certified, you are looking at $3,800. Buy the exact same unit for an experimental or home-built and you'll pay $480. That's not a typo. That's a markup of nearly 8 times, and the engine doesn't care which one you bolt on. The parts catalogs spell it out in black and white. Certified equals expensive, experimental means affordable. The FAA's answer is always the same: safety, traceability, liability. But if you've ever rebuilt a carburetor in a farm hangar or swapped a magneto on a gravel strip, you know the real story. The paperwork doesn't make the engine run. It just makes it legal. The gold-plated wall stands between the mechanic and the machine. Every time you pay for a yellow tag, you are not buying a better part. You are buying permission to fly. The FAA's own cost recovery rules guarantee it. Every inspection, every audit, every authorized signature gets billed back to the little guy. In the 1970s, a Cessna owner could order a replacement magneto for $45 and have it shipped in a week. Now, the same part, unchanged in design, costs nearly 10 times as much, and you will wait months for a back-ordered certified tag. The engine hasn't changed. The rules have. And here is the insult. A brand new high-tech Corvette engine, fuel-injected, computer-controlled, 500 horsepower, costs about $15,000 off the dealer's shelf. But a 1955 design Lycoming IO360 with no electronics, no sensors, and a lineage straight from the Korean War now lists for $139,000. And that is if you can even get one. Orders stack up for a year or more because every engine must pass through the gold-plated wall of certification, audit, and paperwork. The numbers do not lie. It is not about safety, it is about making old iron unaffordable. The gold-plated wall is not just a metaphor. It is a system built to keep the blue-collar pilot grounded, one yellow tag at a time. The first blow lands with a letter from Washington, January 2026, and the FAA's draft plan drops on every airport bulletin board from Maine to Modesto. The end of 100LL is not some distant rumor, it's a hard deadline. December 31st, 2026, the unleaded clock starts ticking. 4 years later, every piston aircraft in the country has to burn unleaded fuel or face grounding. It doesn't matter if your Skywagon has been flying since Eisenhower or if your engine has never missed a beat. The new rules say you pay or you park it. The cost of compliance isn't just a line on a memo. It's a $15,000 to $30,000 bill for a supplemental type certificate kit just to bolt on a few parts and change some paperwork. Gami's kit for a carbureted O360 costs $17,000. For a fuel-injected IO360, the price jumps to $25,000. And that's before you pay the shop's labor, before you even buy a drop of unleaded gas. The numbers aren't theory. They're printed on invoices, stamped and initialed. SVP Aviation's conversion for an IO550 is $29,900. Every kit comes with a stack of forms, a sheaf of compliance documents, and a warning: no paperwork, no flight. For the owner who still believes in the old ways, who keeps a Skywagon on the grass behind the hangar, who knows every sound his engine makes, this is more than a policy change. It's a gut punch. The IO360, the same engine that powered Cessnas across the prairie for half a century, now sits on a price list at $139,000. Not a typo. And if you order today, you'll wait a year or more. The parts pipeline is choked, the backlog stretches past the horizon. Meanwhile, a brand new Corvette engine, loaded with sensors and computers, costs $15,000 out the door. That's the insult. The FAA calls it modernization. To the mechanic who has spent his life keeping the old iron running, it feels like erasure. The gold-plated wall just got higher. Every step, every retrofit, every inspection, every signature costs more than the last. The promise of a simple, honest machine is replaced by a stack of invoices and a threat: pay up or watch your airplane become a museum piece. Owners talk about it in the shop, voices low, hands clenched around coffee cups. Some are angry, some just tired. They see their world turning into paperwork and price tags, the tractor of the sky transformed into a liability overnight. The FAA's unleaded pivot isn't about safety, it's about turning heritage into a burden, and the little guy into a bystander. Lay the invoice flat on the bench and run your finger down the columns. This isn't a bill for a Gulfstream or a turbine swap, it is a standard overhaul for a Lycoming O360, the same workhorse engine that's been flying since Eisenhower. The total at the bottom reads $114,500. That's not a typo. $114,500 to keep a 4-cylinder running. Labor alone clocks in at $69,000. 600 hours at $115 an hour. That's 15 solid weeks of shop time, billed out like every bolt and washer is spun from gold. Ask the shop owner, a man who's rebuilt more engines than most FAA inspectors have flown hours, what changed? He will tell you the truth: half the job is paperwork. Every part, from the piston rings to the oil pump, needs a yellow tag. Every yellow tag means another signature, another audit, another fee. The test cell run costs $9,000. Certified PMA parts, magnetos, prop governor, carburetor, $12,500. And do not forget the core replacement, crankcase, cylinders, pistons, all swapped for new because the FAA will not let you reuse anything that is not blessed by a mountain of documentation. $24,000 just for the privilege of starting over. He shakes his head and points to the insult that stings most. A brand new Corvette engine, 50 years ahead in technology, fuel injected, computer controlled, 500 horsepower, costs $15,000 from the dealer. But a Lycoming, designed in 1955, with no electronics, no sensors, just old-fashioned steel and aluminum, now lists at $130,000 if you can even get one. The shop's waitlist stretches out a year. He calls it what it is, robbery, sanctioned by regulation. The engine itself has not changed. The price is all paperwork, all gold-plated wall. Flight schools are the first to bleed. 12% have grounded their trainers, unable to absorb the cost or the downtime. Students wait months for a slot because the airplanes are stuck in the shop, waiting for parts, waiting for tags, waiting for the FAA to say yes. The invoice is more than a bill, it is a verdict. The system is not failing by accident. It is pricing the blue-collar pilot out of the sky, one certified signature at a time. Rotax logos are starting to show up where Lycoming and Continental once ruled. Walk the ramp at any small airport and you will see the pattern, old Skywagons and Cherokees sitting idle, while new trainers hum along with lightweight, Austrian-built engines. In just 5 years, Rotax-powered registrations have more than doubled, climbing from 1,750 to over 4,200. That is not a fad, it is a migration. Flight schools, battered by six-figure overhaul bills and endless paperwork, are swapping out the old iron for something they can actually afford to keep running. The numbers do not lie. A Rotax 915 IS, turbocharged, burns less gas, runs on unleaded fuel, and lists for about $32,000. That is less than a quarter of what a new IO 360 costs, if you can even get one. The Lycoming catalog says $139,000 with an 18-month wait. That is how you erase a legacy, not with a bang, but with a backorder. And it does not stop at Rotax. Electric trainers are rolling out at flight schools from Arizona to Vermont. Pipistrel's Alpha Electro and Siemens-backed projects mean 12% of schools now have at least one electric on the line. They are not perfect. Short range, long charge times, but they do not need a drop of 100 LL or a single yellow tag. For operators, that means no more $25,000 paperwork kits, no more waiting for a signature from a desk in Washington. The gold-plated wall does not apply to electrons. Some owners are fighting back, pooling resources in co-ops, scouring salvage yards, and trading parts out of old hangar stock. There are forums where mechanics post scans of 1970s service manuals, sharing the tricks that kept engines running before the paperwork took over. A few have started owner archive projects, building digital libraries of old parts lists, field approvals, and repair guides, anything to keep the knowledge alive. It is a quiet resistance, but it is not enough to reverse the tide. If you want to keep your old airplane flying, you need to get organized. Join a co-op. Save every manual you can find. Learn to document your own work, even if the FAA will not recognize it. Build a network of mechanics who still remember how to grind valves and lap seats without a computer. The end of heavy metal is not just about engines or invoices. It is about whether the American sky stays open to the people who built it, or whether it becomes another gated community, priced, papered, and policed until the last honest machine is grounded for good. Today, a new IO 360 costs $139,000, if you can even get one. Meanwhile, a 2026 Corvette engine, twice as complex, costs $15,000. That's not progress. It's an insult. The gold-plated wall stands higher than ever, squeezing every blue-collar flyer out of the sky. If this is modernization, it's erasing the soul of American aviation. The iron endures. But who's left to turn the key? Let me know what you think below.